conference is networking.
Hi, how you doing today? I'm Jerry Rigg. Here's my card. Hi, Justin DeShaw. Glad to see ya.
Sure got some new alternatives and new ways to solve problems.
Research information.
Subjects covering directing, production, client relations, writing.
International, you know. We have so many people asking us, and we ask them to, you know, exchange ideas.
Realize you are the new wave. Don't
Is television dangerous? Only when we do it right.
The judge, you have to be critical, right?
Good morning. Thanks. I hope you enjoyed that, and obviously you did. And welcome to our 25th ITVA conference and the silver anniversary celebration of our organization. I've been looking forward to this conference for the past 2 years, along with many of you who've made this work and worked tireless to bring us all together this morning. If you're a regular at ITVA conferences, I want to welcome you to a special gathering this year. And on the other hand, if this is your first ITVA conference, you're in for a great experience. Please look around you. You are the people of ITVA. Each of you is the reason that this is a great organization. If you haven't met the person next to you, now is the time to say hello. Good morning, David.
Dave Delinsky, how you doing?
Good to meet you.
You like a Pittsburgh fan?
Absolutely. Good morning. Nice to see you. Good morning.
Hello, Dale.
Front row people. Do you want that stuff? No, yeah, I'm still using it. Dale through. Jan. Derek, Dale Thomas. Nice to meet you. Good morning. Dale Thomas, Greg. Good to have you here. Good morning, Jeannie. Charles.
Vice Chairman Dan, glad to meet you.
Good to meet you. I'm sure in this first general session, we'll set the tone for the next 4 days. I hope you'll make this your conference and your event. In the next hour, we're going to recognize one outstanding member of ITVA and present this one individual with our highest honor, the Chuck Webb Award. We'll also present the Technical Achievement and Technical Support Award to two of the leading manufacturers of the tools of video production. Another highlight of this show will be the special trip back we'll take in time and visit with many of the people and events along the road which has brought us and our profession into this celebration today. As we all know, much of what we do as a profession and much of the growth of ITVA could not be possible without the creativity and the support of our commercial members, many of whom have gone out of their way to make this conference a truly special event. I hope you'll take the time while you're here to let them know how important their commitment to you and to ITVA is. And speaking of commitment, I'd like to introduce Len Yazel, our first national president, who will be your host for the rest of this session. Len?
Thank you, Dale. Somehow 25 years ago, I knew this day would come, but I must admit to a bit of envy when Dale has more people at executive council meetings than we had at the whole national conference. But when you work with a group of people and grow up with a group of people in this organization, you can't help but develop a sense of pride and purpose, which leads to a lasting commitment to the success of ITVA. 5 years ago, we decided to recognize outstanding members of ITVA who shared this history with commitment, with hard work, with our highest honor, the Chuck Webb Award.
Chuck's spirit got me involved in this association, and he said, you know, the more you do, the more you'll love it. And he's right. By golly, Chuck, we did make something here.
I've made many changes and career changes in the last few years, and it's been unfortunate Chuck hasn't been there to talk to, but as my wife put it very aptly the other night, she said, he really has been. He's been kind of talking over your shoulder.
Every time I did anything for this association, I got it back tenfold. To get an award for getting so much is just, thank you.
I accept this honor in memory of Chuck, and he is up there, as he would say, looking down upon us and guiding us as we go into the 21st century.
And I carry a note in my briefcase that I got from Chuck a couple of weeks before he died. And he ended it by saying, well, buddy, it's been a hell of a ride. And it truly has been. Good morning. It's a great honor to be here at the 25th and to be able to present this award today. Unlike Lynn, when I met with some people in Philadelphia in 1969, I never expected we would be here 25 years later. He obviously is a much better visionary than I am. As I was trying to think about the remarks I wanted to prepare today, it occurred to me that when we present this award, we honor at least two people. And then I began to realize we really honor more than two people. We honor Chuck. And Chuck, good morning. And we know you're here someplace. We also, of course, honor the recipient of the award, but we also honor everybody else who makes this organization go and grow. Now, I know many of the people sitting here this morning may not have been born 25 years ago. Some of you may not be too far past that anniversary in your life, and 25 years seems like a long time. Trust me, the next 25 will go much faster. In my comments last year, which quite honestly were easier to prepare because I only had 10 seconds to think about it, I talked about a ride, and we've been on a ride for 25 years. And if you're one of those who is fairly new to the organization, it truly is a hell of a ride once you get on it, and I would urge each of you to get on it. Chuck knew that better than probably most of us, that this is an organization of people helping each other, sharing, and making each of us grow individually, professionally, and as an association. Many of you never knew Chuck, and as time goes by, more and more people sitting in the audience will not have known Chuck, will not have experienced his laughter and his dedication and his loyalty. But in this award, Chuck's name and his memory and the work he did for this association will live on. The recipient this year represents the kind of person that Chuck was, the dedication to the association that Chuck had, and the loyalty to the association that Chuck had. Like many people in this room, it started at the chapter level, work on a committee, maybe become a committee chairman, eventually become the chapter president. You then become exposed to the national organization, and many people get involved and continue to grow there, as this person did. Went on to become vice president of the organization, president-elect, and president of the ITVA. But it didn't stop there. I went on to the board of directors and became chairman of the board of directors. Now, one might think that you can retire at that point, but no, this person now serves on the ITVA Foundation as one of its trustees. I'd like you all to join me this morning in congratulating this year's winner of the Chuck Webb Award, Kathy Morris.
Here.
Oh my God. Generally speaking, I'm not at a loss for words. In listening to the comments of those who have come before me and received and accepted this award, I could only think that this association has meant so much to me. Many, many, many of my very closest friends are people that I met and worked with and grew with through ITVA. And most of the really interesting things I've had a chance to do in this profession, including spending 2 years in Indonesia putting 2 television stations on the air, were a direct result of knowing people through my involvement in ITVA. It has been a fascinating 17 years. And Ron started to talk about how there are many of you in the audience who didn't personally know Chuck. I think I may be the start of the generation that just caught him at the tail end, but I remember being a chapter president in Chicago, sitting in my office and having not a clue as to how to go about building membership, and Chuck was the chairman of the membership committee at the time, and I called him, and he was wonderfully supportive and had great ideas, and he talked about just get to know people, and they will get to know you back, and they will commit, they will do things if you ask them. If you go up and you say, will you help the organization out, will you do this? No one is going to turn you down. And in 17 years of being a part of the association and in being a part of the profession, no individual that I have ever approached and asked to do something has ever once said no or ever once let me down. This means more to me than you can possibly imagine. This is a tremendous high for me, and I truly appreciate from all of the leadership and from all of you this recognition. Thank you so much.
Kathy now joins 5 other recipients of the Chuck Webb Award. Communication is the excellence and the essence of our profession, but as we all know, technology gives us the tools we use to do our work. The technology of television today got its start many years ago on a small farm in Idaho. I'd like to ask you to sit back with me now, journey down the road that has affected so many of our professional lives, the road taken.
Roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. The dreams and desires of a 13-year-old farm boy, 6 engineers, a popular singer, and a chemist will converge over 30 years to launch an industry none imagined. On an Idaho farm, a boy named Philo T. Farnsworth has an inspiration while plowing his mother's field.
Whoa! Mr. Tolman is here to see you. Go on up. Come on.
Mr. Tolman! Mr. Tolman!
Oh, hi there, Philo.
He works on his notions of how to turn images into electrical signals for 2 years. In 1922, Philo, a ninth grade student, shows his work to his chemistry teacher. His idea? Scan pictures one line at a time. Electrons will move back and forth across the front of a vacuum tube, like a plow crisscrossing a field. It's the foundation for what we call television.
Stops, goes back, and then it keeps on doing that.
But business doesn't wait for dreams. People use the tools at hand. Years earlier, innovative companies started experimenting with a new art form, motion pictures. Then, as now, the goal was to inform customers and employees. Styles have changed, but not the message. Businesses used motion pictures to promote, instruct, publicize, and inform, before D.W. Griffith and Walt Disney learned how to entertain audiences. The first sound motion picture was a public relations film. Audiences heard Western Electric's executives speak and toured the Hawthorne plant in 1924.
A type of sound reproduction, which one might term a perfect illusion.
3 years later, Al Jolson sang in The Jazz Singer. In 1929, Western Electric made this to explain how movies talked. And Western Electric recorded all the speeches and highlights of the National Electric Light Association's conference. This feat required sleight of hand, not advanced technology. As business and industry discover new uses for film, Farnsworth demonstrates television to the public and battles RCA for his invention. Zworykin's patent claims are dismissed in case after case, but RCA keeps television off the market and protects its profits from radio. In 1939, RCA demonstrates television at the World's Fair and loses its battle with Philo T. Farnsworth. As World War II starts, a device called the magnetophone replaces 78 RPM discs at German radio stations. The music Radio Stuttgart plays all night sounds live, even to Jack Mullen, a U.S. electronics expert stationed in England. He can't imagine how it's possible until he wanders into a station in 1945 and discovers a recorder that uses plastic tape. Mullen packs up 2 magnetophones for the Army and sends 2 home for himself. Back in San Francisco, Mullen assembles his magnetophones and starts demonstrating them for professionals. In 1946, the news reaches one of radio's most popular performers. Bing Crosby detests the schedule that live broadcasting forces him to keep. He joins the fledgling ABC radio network because NBC won't let him air disc recordings of his show. Crosby's producer, Murdo Mackenzie, hears about the magnetophone and invites Mullen to record the first show of Crosby's 1947-48 season. When Crosby hears the recording, he hires Mullen on the spot. From then on, Bing does his show whenever he wants to. Mullen never tells Crosby he only has 50 rolls of tape and no way of getting any more. So Mullen saves every scrap, splices it together, and manages to record 26 shows. In 1948, Crosby Enterprises becomes the distributor for Ampex's Model 200 recorder, a copy of Mullen's magnetophone. 3M introduces a red oxide tape for audio recording. And Crosby Enterprises begins looking for ways Bing can escape the inconvenience of performing live in a new medium, television. Ampex will heed the call.
Was the quality of our products. The fundamental decision was to make our products of excellent quality. 2 letters, EX, for excellence, were added to my initials to form the name of the company.
On April 13th, 1956, there was a call from Mr. Ponyatov, president of Ampex, saying to Bill Wetzel that they hadn't found any tape that they could buy which would work on their video recorder. We need videotape by tomorrow for a demonstration in Chicago.
We were a pretty good bunch of engineers individually, and as a team, I think we achieved something that was fairly remarkable.
A couple of weeks earlier, I had been working on how do you make tape that would resist high temperatures in adverse environments. And it turned out to be the thing I decided on was to have a chemical reaction at the time of coating, and by about 4 in the morning, we had something ready to go. Bill Wetzel delivered the tape to Charlie Ginsberg and his people.
Of course, it was developed in secret. Very few people had seen it. And we demonstrated it to the CBS affiliates.
What they did is they put the tape on, and Charlie ran it across, and his exact words were, well, holy smokes, it really works. He backed it up several seconds, maybe 20, 30 seconds, and all of a sudden, the monitor had what this man had been saying previously, and it stunned the audience. And it was silent for a while, and then there was clapping, stamping feet, pounding, everything. And it turned out to be that the network people present were rushing up to Charlie Ginsberg to bring orders.
We had no idea what we should charge for it. And after we demonstrated it that night, we all sat up in a room and tried to figure out what we should sell it for. How much would it cost us to build it? And we came up with a number, if I remember correctly, of $45,000. And I believe we got orders for about 40 of those at that time. Miserable though they were.
Technical Achievement Emmys are rarely awarded to individuals. Philo T. Farnsworth, Arthur C. Clarke, and Mel Sater are among the few exceptions.
Receiving the Emmy was a big surprise to me because it came about after leaving 3M on early retirement. It was a great honor, and as my mentor, Harold Eady, said at the time that it's the first one ever given for chemistry. So you can sneak into the theatrical world through chemistry.
Mel Slater at 3M received his Emmy for technical achievement in recognition of his work back in the 1950s. This morning, ITVA will present our Technical Achievement Award and our Technical Support Award in recognition of outstanding technical support of our profession. Here to make the presentation are Chairman of the ITVA Board of Directors, Beverly Hare, and Chairman of the ITVA Technical Support Services Committee, Bill Ryan.
Good morning. You know, every year, the Technical Support Committee reviews multiple products, and we evaluate their impact on the field of communications. Each year, our task becomes much more difficult as the features increase so dramatically. So this year, awardees represent a pick from a very distinguished field of products.
The Technical Achievement Award is given for a product which has shown a significant technical advancement within the communications industry. ITVA would like to present the 1993 Technical Achievement Award to Inline Video in recognition of development of Pathfinder, a reconfigurable matrix switcher.
The members of our committee found that the Pathfinder represents a major step forward in signal routing in multiple distribution environments. Some of the benefits include a much more economical production and the benefits of a wider programming distribution as well.
And here to receive the Technical Achievement Award is Mr. Mike Gershfeld, President of Inline Video. Thank you. Congratulations.
Never did I imagine that I would receive this award 17 years after our family left Russia and immigrated to the United States, looking for the American dream, like many people before us in this great country. Listening to everybody here, this is the most wonderful group that I have encountered, and I have to share something with you. A story that happened to me when I just came to the United States. This was my first job was a mail clerk in a 9-story building. It was an office, and after the first couple months of my work, I was given this great responsibility to pack the mail in the bags and take it to the post office. And the mail bags were on the first floor, and we're on the 9th floor. So here I am, barely speaking English, walking down to the first floor, come to a man in his little booth, and I say, "I need some sex." And he looks at me, opens his eyes wide, and he said, "What did you say?" And I'm taking a little bit aback here, and I'm thinking he probably doesn't understand my English, so I tried to explain myself, and I said, "I need some male sex." Now, by that time, I mean, he's walking away from me. I cannot even reach to him. So trying to make it more clear, I say, "Let me show you what I mean." So, and I had to open the counter, walk in and grab the bag, and I said, "This is what I need." And he says, "Oh, you need male sex." I said, "Yes, that's what I need." Now, standing here today receiving this award is a great achievement, but not only mine. There are people at Inline who worked on this product for the last 3 years. My brother, Jack Gershfeld, who is probably one of the most brilliant engineers, who is responsible for several products that received award-winning products. In 1989, ICIA Manufacturer of the Year Award was received because of his design, and this year the product we've introduced both won both the Manufacturer of the Year Award for ICIA and this Technical Achievement Award. He deserves probably most of the credit, and I'm here to accept this award on his behalf and behalf of Inline. Thank you very, very much. And God bless this great country.
I don't think we can beat male sax. No, I don't think so.
I think you're right.
Then we go home. The Technical Support Award is given in recognition of an award or of a product which has shown a significant technical advancement that supports the communication industry and its personnel, you. This year's winner combines existing computing hardware, standard user interfaces, and established graphic packages with traditional editing concepts, and creates a system which the committee judged would bring immediate cost-effective benefits to any ITVA member who's involved in creating and producing video communications.
And ITVA is proud to present the Technical Support Award to iMix in recognition of their nonlinear editing system, VideoCube. And here to accept the award is Vice President of Engineering of iMix, Richard Jackson.
Well, compared to Mikhail, I've led a relatively dull life, I'm afraid. Used to think that just male and female connectors were racy. On behalf of all of the people of IMIX, I would like to thank Bill Ryan and the members of the Technical Support Services Committee and all the members of ITVA for this honor. Our goal in designing VideoCube was to make a tool that would help you, the professional video communicator, produce high-quality, exciting, and affordable video productions. We're proud of our product, but we're even more proud that you have chosen to honor it with this award. I am allowed one commercial plug. IMIX will be showing VideoCube in the Emerging Technologies Showcase tomorrow afternoon in Phoenix Room 11. We hope to see you all there. Thank you very much.
Congratulations to both Inline and IMIX, and a special thanks for all the efforts which goes into your products. I'd now like to introduce one of ITVA's past presidents and a good friend, Steve Kaltola.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning, everyone. I remember my first national conference. It was back in Kansas City, and I'm trying to figure out what the real draw was. I was just sitting back thinking about something. I could have joined a lot of different associations. I could have joined a speech association, a public relations association, a marketing association. You know, those places, those associations that are more traditional, where there's not a lot of change. But no, I had to join ITVA, an association that attaches itself to technology. We deserve each other, don't we? We really do. But what I remember most about my first conference in 1978 in Kansas City was people. I went there as a graduate student, and I met the likes of Ron Brown, Lynn Yezel, Bob Pissarro, Al Bond, and many others. And those are real lifelong friends, people that I've stayed in touch with ever since. And they were gracious, and they were famous. They were up here talking to people, and then they actually were willing to talk to me back there in the lobby. And I learned a lot about this association and a lot about this business from those kinds of people. And that's truly a special thing about ITVA. So I think that's something you all ought to pay attention to in the next 4 days, especially if you're just here for the first time or just in the first couple of years. You've got to take advantage of it. Now, I have the honor of reading to you a little letter. I don't know this gentleman personally. I'm not that political. But it's a letter from the President of the United States. I quit. Oh, no, that's... Sorry, Bill. Couldn't resist. The White House, May 21st, 1993. Greetings to everyone gathered in Phoenix to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the International Television Association. As we move through the 90s, new technologies and a changing workforce are transforming your industry and demanding fresh ideas to embrace these changes. Our nation's major corporations, government agencies, medical facilities, and academic institutions require the latest innovations in communications to remain competitive. The network you provide for the many people who put video together helps our nation to reap the benefits of new technology. I am particularly pleased to hear about your members' generous contributions to their communities. The public service videos and announcements you produce go a long way toward improving our neighborhoods and cities, and they allow the magic of video technology to affect the lives of millions. On behalf of all those whose sphere of knowledge has expanded because of your organization's efforts, I thank you for a job well done. Best wishes for continued success in the future, Bill Clinton. A little while ago, we were all involved in a look back at the start of our profession. Let's continue our journey now, down the road taken.
There may be some instances, for example, color television, where we're ahead of you. You see, you never concede anything. Where do you see the picture?
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other thing.
My first equipment was a 1-inch portable tape recorder that weighed 129 pounds. My camera was a teardrop-shaped camera with a 3-lens turret. When I would go to the wide-angle lens, I'd catch a piece of the sunshade of one of the other lenses. And I always have a little black half-moon in the corner of the picture.
We were never out of studio for the first 4 or 5 years of everything we produced. We built a big enough studio with a loading dock that we could bring IBM mainframe machines into the studio to do training on them because we couldn't go to the field and shoot them.
We often had to shoot the tape and send the tape with the recorder that it was taped on to be sure that it would play back, because the compatibility from one machine to the other, or from one deck to the other, was very doubtful.
We didn't really know what we were doing or how to make it happen in terms of putting a finished video piece together. But I think that the thing that we all had in common, regardless of how we were using video, was that we believed and we knew that it could communicate.
The thing to do with television, I think, is to make it as simple as possible. That doesn't mean make the idea as simple as possible, but make the presentation as simple as possible, and don't clutter it up with a lot of pictures that divert from what you're trying to say.
So I think every worker, every person that uses television, directly or indirectly, has got to be very careful to be truthful and honest in its use. Because in that way, you see, your own message, the idea, the thought, the hope that you want to get across, comes across clean and pure because it is honest.
In my opinion, a television department will be extremely successful in a corporation if, one, it fits, okay, obviously if the application is there, and two, if you must make your operation as little trouble as possible for a manager to utilize.
And you had to cut the tape in the middle of a control track pulse. So you look through this microscope, lined up with little wheels, and dropped the guillotine down and cut the tape. And then did the same thing, made your edit, and taped it back together, and hoped the thing would lock up and not jump all over when that edit went through the machine.
When I came back from University of Michigan as a hotshot young director, I only had 2 job opportunities. One as an usher at NBC and the other as a production assistant at Merrill Lynch. Merrill Lynch paid more. That's how I got into corporate television.
We used to do a lot of studio production in the early days. We'd build elaborate sets, if we had the dollars, of course, and we used a lot of talking heads.
Within a few short months, Marketdyne will have the largest single videotape network in the world.
Here at Phillips Petroleum Company, we have tried to take the video media and use it as a problem-solving, cost-effective training and communications tool.
A little far-fetched? Perhaps, but definitely not impossible.
Hello, my name is Doug Merriam, and I'm the head of the video production team for Audit Services Bureau.
Hello, I'm Pat Tanner, one of the Title 20 training managers for the Georgia Department of Human Resources.
Hello, I'm Bob Heitman, speaking for Sony Corporation.
Do you ever get the idea that someone was telling you less than the whole truth?
We started off by purchasing what you see here, a television and a VCR.
Hydrocarbon expulsion from compaction stage 2 shales. But the bumblebee doesn't know this, so he goes ahead.
We were trying to do a nicely packaged, finished video program with stone hammers and chisels, and that's what we were trying to work with. That's where our struggle was really how to make something that looks decent with very primitive tools.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The only really sign I had in the early 70s that what we were doing was going to have some kind of an impact was the feedback and the response and the inquiries we were getting from people who were doing corporate communication jobs in other companies. We started doing the TV news program in the early 70s and got some coverage in TV Guide and the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. And all of a sudden, we were getting a lot of inquiries from corporate communication people all over the country saying, what is this video news program you're doing? Can we see some examples of it? Can you tell us about it? I'm standing in SKNF's corporate TV studio on the 8th floor. Tomorrow we're going to have an open house here between 11:30 and 1:45 and 3:45 and 4:30. We'd like to invite you up to get a behind-the-scenes look at the SKNF TV news so that you can become more familiar with the TV production process. And while we're having that open house tomorrow, we'll have the raw footage from the Lloyd Bridges visit last week and a Polaroid camera so that anyone who wants a picture can get a picture of Lloyd Bridges or themselves in Lloyd Bridges or their friends in Lloyd Bridges. So what we decided to do was to organize a series of two-day workshops and seminars, and we invited people from other organizations to come together, come to Philadelphia for 2 days, and we showed them what we were doing. We talked about how it got started and some of the thoughts that we had behind it. And then as part of it, we also had a workshop where they would take these porta-packs and do segments based around the workshop and end up with a finished product that they would then have gone through and had the experience of putting together.
So we shared space with a company called Visual Information Systems that ran a hospital tape duplication network. And a drug company would go to various hospitals and say, would you like to join our network? And the hospitals would say, sure, what do we have to do? And they'd say, well, you have to have videotape playback equipment. Well, as a result, there were about 40 different types of videotape that this company had to deal with. And every night they would duplicate tapes in formats ranging from 2-inch quadruplex down to 1/4-inch Akai. And it was a nightmare. And in 1971, while I was at Computer Television, Sony brought in a product for us to look at, and it was the 3/4-inch U-matic video cassette machine. It was just astounding.
And I think our industry, our business probably would not exist had somebody not invented the 3/4 U-matic video cassette player.
Americans love to join associations, and industrial television gave birth to two tiny organizations.
The ITS, the National ITS, and the which is the Industrial Television Society, and NIDA, which is the National Industrial Television Association, merged earlier this year to form one group, one common group, called the International Industrial Television Association. And the goals and objectives basically are to set up an international sharing of ideas, basically between people in management positions.
My first ITVA conference, we had 42 people pre-registered, probably about 55 total attendants. The one thing that I remember about it was the chance to sit down and talk to people who were doing the same thing I was struggling to do and share solutions to problems, common problems.
That's, I think, a lot of the success ITVA had early on was the sharing of information. If I had a problem, I'd call someone else I knew in the association and say, look, I'm trying to do this. Have you ever done that? How'd you do it?
The year was 1972, and I had to get on my knees practically and beg for $5,000 for a set which we could amortize over 10 programs, and trying to convince management that that $5,000 was going to be money well spent.
Plan what has to be done and how you want to do it. Prepare everything you'll need, and with everyone who has anything to do with the production. Then produce, but only after you're thoroughly satisfied that everything and everyone is ready to go when you roll the tape.
Stand by, America. It's time to play the Energy Game with your host, Ken Bolton.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Everybody's playing it. Now you can play too. You control the action. You control the processing.
These types of settings are challenges to your imagination.
The biggest challenge that I faced as a female in a male-dominated industry was mostly establishing my credibility. When I would go on remote locations, I would have to convince people that I was the one in charge, that I was the producer-director, and basically establish myself as the leader on the shoot.
I'll bet there are lots of times when you could have sold someone on the idea of using long distance.
And here are your hosts for today's show, Jane Van Bergen and Bob James.
Nat Stacker III, the big advantage is yours now because you have first crack at the incredible lightning round.
We actually had to create artwork, and we had to shoot everything on slides, and we had to transfer everything to videotape.
In the old days when we edited, we used reel-to-reel tape and we grease pencil marked our spot and we rolled back and we hoped on the fly that we would catch that edit point.
Why, you may ask, did I buy these glasses? Well, it's rare that employees get a chance to have direct input into the marketing plans for one of the corporation's products, but American Polarizers would be very appreciative of some information right now.
I was one of the early people using a portable black and white camera. They made it possible for people to produce corporate programming that had never been possible before. We could get out of the studio, we could go places, we could show things, we could demonstrate processes, and they just were not really possible to do in real environments before. You could do some of it or talk about it in a studio, but this was a whole new ball game.
The first time I actually got into video was in '75. I was working with James Wong Howe. Since I was a big, strapping young boy in those days, I was elected to be the bearer of that portable equipment, and it was about 100 pounds of equipment.
And NAB called me and they said, who is ITVA? And I said, ITVA is the group that invented and developed E&G. And I said that for the simple reason that at that time, the broadcaster were just really getting into E&G. They'd been using film before that, 16 millimeter. And we were learning to shoot single camera and editing before the broadcaster was with videotape. And so, I know we call it EFP. We brought a lot to the industry that I think the people don't realize.
Consultants and architects demanded vast quantities of money and floor space. And without asking the chief or anyone else what kind of wonderful tapes they would make, or just who would see them, or what the tapes would be about, the consultants continued to consult. After all,
and by the time we got the studio built and equipped, then along came the portable cameras and the portable field production equipment, and we found we didn't need the studio.
Then from there, we graduated into electronic film production, and we've been able to make our programs more real, if you will, to our audience by being there in the location and enhancing the programs with a lot of wonderful computer graphics that are astounding in terms of sophistication and color compared to those old crude character generators we used for much of the 70s.
When I was starting, there was no such thing as editing a videotape. There were no time-based correctors, there was no video cassette, there was no distribution system. VCRs in homes and in offices were almost not heard of. There was no resource of freelance or independent talent to draw on.
Amazing. I'm sure that each of you back in those 70s days has your own little anecdotes to remember about how much fun that was. It has come a long ways. Back in the 70s, in the early corporate days, multimedia meant slides, a chalkboard, 16 millimeter film, and then that strange new format called 3/4 inch cassette. It was a real time of evolution in corporate video when leading companies were beginning to rely on video communication to help them train, inform, and communicate with a consistent message. I'd like to introduce two more past presidents of ITVA, both with outstanding backgrounds in the corporate television world. One you've already met, our Chuck Webb Award winner, Kathy Morris, and Joe Mayella.
Thanks, Lynn. As Dale Thomas told you in his opening remarks, he wants this to be your conference. So Joe and I would like to come on out in the audience and give you an opportunity to share some things with us about what you were doing back in the 70s, back in the 80s.
Everybody's going, uh-oh.
Looking for people who
now?
want. So come on, somebody's got to have a remembrance.
Oh, we got one over there. I used to wonder what made this profession so crazy until I saw Mel Sater up there How many times does this happen to you? You get the job the day before, you finish it at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you have no idea what to charge for it. It sounds like a producer's job. Here's a guy. I know you've got a story. What's your name, sir?
Kerry Floyd.
Kerry, and what do you do?
I produce videos for Sunoco Products Company out of South Carolina.
Okay, you've got to tell me what your worst technical nightmare was or has been.
Probably the first time I tried to do a Chinese translation of a English video overnight. Without an interpreter.
This is not a plant, I guarantee you. This is a real story. Thank you. Did anybody notice the difference?
I wasn't around.
Thanks, Carrie, and welcome to the conference. Kathy, got anybody over there?
Joan, how about if you share something with us? Tell us your name.
I'm Joan Kasich.
And where are you from? What company?
I'm with Pacific Bell, and I produce training videos.
And what do you remember about the very first programs that you put together?
Well, in relationship to the 70s, I was trying to think back, and we didn't even have U-matic in those days. We shot in 16mm Bolex and then transferred that to 1-inch. And it was always a nightmare. And but in terms of the technology, I love it now. It's so much easier today than it was then. It's so you can put together shows so much quicker. It took us months and months and months to do documentaries back in the 70s, and now it just takes a few weeks.
Isn't that amazing how things have really become more convenient over the years?
We have another victim over here, Kathy. Somebody actually raised their hand. Boy, they're in trouble now. So your name?
Mike Brown. The story I have is back in 1972 when we converted from 1-inch black and white to half-inch black and white, and we took all the tape and we split it in half because we didn't want to waste it. So we put it on a film spinner, and we ran it through a block and a razor blade to cut it all down in half. And I remember going through hundreds of miles of tape to do that.
Resourceful, yes. Stingy, yes. Great story. Thanks very much.
And you are?
Carl Scott.
And Carl, who are you with, and what have you got to tell us?
I'm an independent in Atlanta, and I've learned my lesson about sitting on the aisle at these things. The one thing I remember from the 70s is having to edit on the old 2-inch quad machines where you'd get through about 4 or 5 edits, and then the vacuum system would go down or something else, and the engineers would have to go through a long setup for a couple of hours before you could get back into the session.
Anybody else remember that?
I'm going to pick on somebody over here. Sir, your name?
Don Corley.
Don Corley. Don Corley. I picked on a good one. Don, do you have a story for us?
Oh, in the 70s, I was shooting film for the Air Force, so...
Shooting film. Don, the doors are right down there by the... Thanks. And no video stories?
No video stories.
Are you shooting video now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Lots of video?
Yeah, lots of video.
Thanks, Don. Kathy?
Down front, Michael Ponder.
Hello, I'm with J.C. Penney, and when I started in mid-70s, we had a woman who wanted to be an editor and couldn't because we were working with the 2-inch quad machines, or the 2-inch helical machines, and her arms weren't long enough to reach both decks simultaneously.
So those were the reasons you used for discrimination in the 70s.
We have time for one more, I think, Kathy. Sir.
I'm Joe DiAugustino. When I first joined the insurance company in North America in the early 70s, my first edit as producer, I went into the studio with the engineer who was going to operate the IVC 960s, 1-inch helical machines. And we were going through the edit, and at some point he's looking at a scope, some mysterious scope, and he said, oh, wait a minute, I have to make an adjustment. The RF return is low. And he went and got a block of wood and a hammer, a ball-peen hammer. And he put the block of wood on the guidepost by the heads, and he went, boom! I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm adjusting the RF return. And he went one more time, boom! And he looked at the scope, he goes, there, that's better. And that served me well. Ever since, I've learned not to question engineers.
Not when they're carrying ball-peen hammers, that's for sure. Thanks, Jerry. Well, we've heard some great stories, and I want to thank all of our audience for sharing those with us. And now I think it's time to get back to the road taken. Let's look.
Several years ago, wandering around an NAB floor, I decided to count to see how many standards there were for recording on film, recording on audio tape, recording on videotape, recording on disc, magnetic disc, and recording on optical disc. I stopped counting when I reached 75.
The biggest change I see for the immediate future of this industry is less of a dependence on technology. We throw on light switches and we don't have to think about the generators that are making the power and the distribution systems and who made the light bulb and so on. I see the same thing happening in video. We've been very technologically based. You couldn't be in this industry before unless you knew how to work a complex videotape recorder or how to set up a complex camera or something like that. Now that technology is really simple. We have little kids who can operate camcorders.
Other forces from outside the industry are also causing repercussions.
The most important development in private television in the last 10 years has nothing to do with technology or programming. It has to do with the corporate downsizing that has affected so many, many companies.
When you could buy equipment that you could take out on the field, go do remotes, go do location shoots, and not be captive to the studio, which we were in the early days, it then became a much broader kind of market. There was less of a need for a big monolithic corporate television facility, and the whole opportunity opened up to independence. There aren't a lot of corporate facilities left. 1992.
In-house facilities were built to save money, and now we're using outside services for the very same reason.
Within my time span in the industry, we've seen the development of the cassette, electronic editing, time code related editing, nonlinear editing,
rearrange the
camcorder, chip cameras, fiber optic distribution, satellite distribution. It's just amazing. Every change has had a tremendous impact on the industry.
We're still doing the same things that we did 20 years ago in terms of what we're trying to communicate. Communicating ideas, training people how to do things better.
The Internal Revenue Service is the largest agency of the Treasury Department. The mailroom of each district office is flooded with returns as the April 15th deadline approaches. Sacks are tossed on a growing pile to await opening and distribution.
Receipt and control personnel carefully count and accept the heavy cages of pre-sorted mail as they're unloaded from the truck. More than 40 million pieces of mail will cross our dock this year.
Hi, I'm Marcy Singer. Here in the Marketdine computer room, all of you, all our prime prospects, are processed.
Through brokers, we distribute unique services to Fortune 1000 customers around the world. Sophisticated claims processing services.
Toro, America's great leader in the field of power mowing equipment, proudly presents the story of its dynamic growth and achievements. The dramatic story of an idea nurtured and developed by a small group of men many years ago.
Leading the riding mower line is this 832 rear-engine rider, rated #1 by a leading consumer rating magazine.
Well, let's use this demonstration model for a moment while we dial our number. Let's take up your receiver and always listen for the dial tone.
Meet your new partner. This will replace the telephone that many of us are used to. It can do everything your old phone could do, and a whole lot more.
It's not too dissimilar in walking on stilts.
Dr. Richard Coyne, SKNF's Director of Occupational Health, says his experience here supports the national publicity about problems with platform shoes. According to Dr. Coyne, the shoes, some of which have 2 or more inches of sole, have contributed to or caused 1/3 of the accidents reported to the dispensary over the last 2 months.
"20 years ago, corporate television was looked at almost as a novelty by a lot of management people. That is not the case today.
Our first brush report was done 20 years ago. And at that time, we found that there were only 300 corporations in the United States using television for communications, marketing, and training purposes. There are over 12,000 companies using television on a regular basis.
Today, with the sophisticated digital effects units and with the character generators and paint boxes that we have, we can almost whip up anything instantaneously and put it out on a show within a matter of a couple hours.
I don't think any of us really looked ahead to think about what it would be like 25 years later and how pervasive it would be, not only through organizations and corporations, but throughout our whole society.
We've expanded the use of how we use the television medium.
Corporate television is still struggling for an identity. We're accepted in the corporate world, but not the way I think we should be.
There's an old joke, you can always tell the AV producer. He's the one who holds out for the lowest price.
The ability to just take material from any place that you have in a linear sequence of shots, assemble it on a computer screen, and have that be the final product, not have to go into a secondary videotape assembly stage. But I don't think that's as significant as the changes that are occurring in the democratization of the industry, from being television to being video. And video replacing things that people never dreamed of using video for before.
You mean I can put together a whole video program?
Without ever having to leave your desk. This is the real thing, Fred. This is what your imagination's been waiting for.
My business now is optical disc, digital and analog disc. And as much as we would like to be all things to all people, the technology still doesn't do what tape does so effectively.
Most of us predicted that the videotape, especially the 3/4-inch videotape, would die a quiet death by, say, maybe the end of the 1970s, and we all know how that prediction went.
So the rapid rate at which we put it all in the desktop, I think is very badly oversold. We can do a lot of things with graphics and text and stills, but motion video is a real challenge.
There was some rawness to the early programs that we're doing that communicated well. I mean, you see a lot of sort of attempts at it in some of the reality-based broadcast TV that we see today. But that does get your attention in some way. There's something about it that does. And I think some of the slickness, depending on what the purpose and the objective is, may not always be an advantage.
Back in 1962, a gentleman named Gordon Moore co-founded Intel Corporation. He said that every 2 to 3 years, the versatility and the speed of computing would double. At the same time, the cost and the size of computing would halve. You know, if that kind of a trend up and down had been applied to automobiles in 1960, a Mercedes-Benz, which then cost you, say, $10,000 and gave 10 miles to the gallon of gas, would today cost under $10, and it would give over 10,000 miles to a gallon of gas. So that's what's happened to the computing industry, and that's what's happening to television. Every piece of television equipment is a computer.
The old joke is, what do you spend most of your time doing in post-production suite? Watching tape machines wind. And that all goes away with disc. It's immediate.
So there will be no universal videotape format, ever. So the future of recording is a universal format called a computer disk drive.
Scott Billups is bringing that day closer with the first tapeless television program.
A Day in the Life of Melrose is more of a technology demonstration than anything else. It's shot directly into a computer, RGB into the computer. The computer does the A to D conversion, drops it direct to disk. It's edited entirely on the disk, from the disk, laid back to the disk, all within the computer environment, and then we take the computer over to KCET, wire it into the system, and uplink directly from the computer. So at no time does it touch or come from videotape. It's totally 100% computer-based environment.
We will continue our journey. Thank you. We'll continue our journey down the road taken on Saturday night. But now it's time to wrap up this session and to highlight some of the special features ahead for you on the 25th conference. Following this session is lunch at the Hyatt Hotel in the ballroom, if you purchase the meal tickets. Then this afternoon, our regular mix of professional development sessions will run until 5 p.m. We'll give you an hour to regroup, and then Panasonic Broadcast and Television Systems Company will start your Wednesday evening off with our Silver Celebration, beginning at 6 p.m. in the Hyatt Hotel atrium. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings will all start off with a continental breakfast here at the Convention Center. I hope you will enjoy this opportunity to get together and network each morning and get your day off to a good start. This year we've extended our morning sessions to a single 2-hour block with some extra time for questions and answers. The sessions scheduled for these times will be some of our more in-depth workshops. In the afternoon, we'll return to the traditional setup with 2 90-minute sessions. Tomorrow afternoon, you will notice that we have planned an afternoon of emerging technologies. This is your opportunity to learn about the latest equipment and techniques available in our industry. You will be able to work with the hardware, to participate in the demonstration, and speak directly to the manufacturers. I hope you'll find this experience an effective bridge to our first trade show and a conference with Infocom in Anaheim next year. Tomorrow evening, we will see you back here for second general session, at which time I'll put on my Pat Sajak hat, and thanks to American Airlines, we'll be giving away 2 free round-trip tickets to anywhere American flies, to one of you here in the audience, because you must be here to win. Afterwards, yes, somebody was here last year, and remember that we pulled out several names before we found a winner. Afterwards, everyone is invited to the President's reception in the Hyatt Atrium, sponsored by Sony Corporation. Friday and Saturday will be busy days, full of sessions. Finally, I'll meet you at the Hyatt Ballroom for dinner at 6 p.m. Saturday evening for our Golden Reel Awards banquet, followed by the Golden Reel Awards ceremony here in this room. Sounds like a lot. It is a lot, and I know it's going to be a great time. Before we get to the rest of this conference, though, underway, I want to thank the many people who've contributed so much of their time and their resources to this event. I especially want to recognize first Allied Film and Video for the beautiful conference handbook they've created for the 2nd year in a row for us. And I'd be remiss again if not calling your attention to our corporate sponsors and other commercial members who support us with their special recognition, and particularly Panasonic Company for their support of our kickoff social event tonight, our Silver Celebration. I hope to talk to each of you over the next few days. Please let me know how things are going and how the conference is for you, and have a good time.